I'd like to call the 2025 town meeting to order, and if it please the Assembly, if you would stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, as we begin, I'd like to introduce folks at the table here. The far left, you Jimmy Poston and Glenn Sherman, and I think then Matt, and then Dan Harming. And Cindy is...
She should be here.
She'll be here.
Yeah, there she
There
is.
she is. So if you wish to address the Assembly, we've got an extra microphone here, and we can get it passed to you, but it's very helpful for everybody to hear through the amplification system, and it also helps with the televised broadcast. So our state representatives, Anthony, James, and Ron Hunter, are here. Would like to address the Assembly. They're not Arlington residents, so I would ask for a motion to allow you to address the Assembly. Any seconds? Second. Any discussion? Pardon? Any discussion on the motion? There's no discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Aye. The motion carries. There has been a request that we, from the Select Board, that this is just an informational presentation by our representatives. They will be answering any questions from the floor. I know they probably have ways for you to contact them. They'll let you know if you've got specific concerns that you'd like to address. So.
Thank you. Thanks for having us tonight. And as the moderator mentioned, I know the Select Board wants to keep things moving along tonight, so... Too loud. Okay. I know the Select Board wants to keep... That's fine. Okay. So I hope people can hear me, but not hear me too loudly. So the Select Board wants to keep things moving along tonight, so we've been asked not to take questions from the floor this evening, but we were here last night. I'm looking around, I've seen a lot of folks who were here last evening. We had a really great community conversation on education reform, and we are looking for a date soon to come back and do another one. And also, as you leave tonight, there is a survey with a QR code or a link that you can fill out to register your opinions. It's a pretty long survey, actually, about education reform. And those results will go to the Speaker of the House, to the House Education Committee, and then directly to your state representatives. So Rob and I will see all the responses as well. So I'll try to keep it brief here. We are about halfway through the 2025 legislative session. And we haven't seen a whole lot of bills come to the floor yet, and that's not unusual for the first year of a two-year biennium. We always have a lot of new members. This year we have a brand new committee, we have new committee chairs, and we usually take some time to try to take a lot of introductory testimony, make sure that all of our legislators get up to speed on their policy issues. And I would say that this year the legislature is moving even more slowly than usual, because we are very focused as a body on education reform. I would say that hands down, that is the top priority that you told us to focus on, and so we are doing that. And my colleague Rob Hunter serves on the House Education Committee, and he's going to talk a little bit about some of this ground we covered last night, about where we are with education reform, what the timeline is, and some of the highlights of the governor's which are focused on trying to make it easier to build housing in our downtowns and neighborhoods. The places, where it's easiest to build or should be easiest to build. And so we passed a series of bills to get that done, and that included last year a pretty sweeping Act 250 reform bill. And one of the first steps in rolling out that Act 250 reform is the appointment of a land use review board. And those members were just appointed by Governor Scott, and their work is getting underway. So this year, the House is working on an omnibus housing bill that I think we'll see come to the floor in a week or two. And that's going to focus on two major issues. One is permitting, making it faster and easier for towns to grant building permits, and also to try to help municipalities build out the important infrastructure that we need to build housing in the first place, like water and sewer. So we continue to try to move the ball down the field with housing. Healthcare, another huge problem for Vermonters in terms of trying to afford to live here. One of the things that we're doing in the short term is, this is a little bit wonky, but for anybody who's heard of the certificate of need process, it's a permitting process that healthcare facilities use often to try to expand services, to try to add new services. We're going to streamline that and make it a lot easier for healthcare providers to get a certificate of need. And then we are hoping sometime in this biennium to get out a bigger bill that takes a meaningful long-term bite in healthcare affordability, and that'll be after we get this first bill out the door. Let's see, there's a new committee I mentioned. It's the House Energy and Digital Infrastructure Committee, and I'm the chair of that. We've spent most of this first year getting up to speed. We have 9 members on the committee. I'm a new chair, and we have 5 brand new members of the legislature. So we have spent a ton of time just taking what we call kind of 101 or foundational testimony on the 2 areas that we oversee, which is climate and energy, and then also digital infrastructure. And by that we mean state IT systems, broadband, and telecommunications. So we passed our first bill. On Friday, we got it out on a 9-0 unanimous bipartisan vote, which was my goal. I'm really proud about that. And this bill will make sure that the Agency of Digital Services does a better job of reporting to Vermonters and to legislators about all money that we are spending on state IT. I don't know if anybody in this room tried to file for unemployment during the COVID pandemic, but I think many people will remember that our 50-year-old mainframe that handles UI claims basically melted down. And that is an example of the kind of work we're doing. The Department of Labor is now engaged in a very expensive multi-year project to update our unemployment insurance system. So right now we've got about 53 active projects that over the next years are going to total serious money. It's about $700 million. And so my committee is going to be trying to keep an eye on that, making sure we're providing oversight. Another thing we're going to be working on is energy and climate bills. I know many folks in this room will remember a bill called the Affordable Heat Act, very controversial bill that the legislature passed in 2023. The idea, and it was a complicated one, the idea was that we would engage fuel dealers, require them to buy or earn credits. That would raise a bunch of money, and we would use that money to help Vermonters be able to afford the high upfront costs of doing things like weatherizing your home or installing a more efficient heating system. Because if you can afford those upfront costs, a lot of times you wind up saving a lot of money down the road on your heating bills. The bill was controversial, and because it was receiving so much scrutiny, we did 2 fairly unprecedented things. One was that instead of just passing it, we asked the Public Utility Commission to basically draft it, like write the playbook, show us how this is going to look, tell us how much it's going to cost, tell us how much it's going to save. So that report came back to the legislature as we had requested a couple months ago, right at the start of the biennium. And the good news was that it showed that the clean heat standard was going to cost a lot less than the $4 a gallon figures that were floating around. The estimated cost would have been 8 cents a gallon in the first year, rising to maybe 58 cents a gallon. In year 10, all of those revenues would have been plowed back into incentives. But the PUC also concluded that basically the program is too complicated for Vermont to roll out right now. So that is on the shelf, it is on ice, not going to happen. And I think that the next step for the Energy Committee, the governor has, and I'm not sure if folks have seen this or aware of it, but the governor has submitted an omnibus climate bill. It's H-258. It's in my committee, and he's requesting some changes to some of Vermont's key climate bills, like the Global Warming Solutions Act and the Renewable Energy Standard. And we're going to take testimony on that, start a little walkthrough where we can add a crossover, and we'll see where that all winds up. Finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the moment we're in with our state budget. Vermont always passes a balanced state budget. We're very proud of that. I'm sure folks are aware of the fact that the Trump administration has moved pretty quickly to halt some federal funding, to freeze some federal funding, and to sort of bring into question some other federal funds. The reason this matters for Vermont is that 36% of our annual spending comes from those federal dollars. And so if if funding is halted or cut at the federal level, we could be looking at budget gaps in some of our spending. And so right now, as we start to develop our state budget, we're trying to develop contingency plans to try to figure out what we would do if there's a drop in funding for transportation. A lot of our transportation dollars come from the federal government. If there's any loss of funding to Medicaid, if there's any loss of funding to our public schools, do we have the ability to fill those gaps? Probably not. Could we fill a little of it? How do we roll back services? So it's really hard to know right now how we will respond or what's going to happen, but I think it's important that folks know that we're keeping an eye on it and we're trying to be prepared. We had taken a significant amount of testimony, for example, about how energy prices might be impacted by the tariffs on Canada. We get a decent amount of our energy from Canada, from Hydro-Quebec, and Vermont Gas gets its natural gas comes through a pipeline, comes down from Canada as well. So the tariffs that have gone into effect today, just as an example, may well impact energy prices. So we are trying to keep tabs. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ronald. And just wanted to emphasize to folks that we're, understand why we're not going to take questions tonight. I know you guys have a full agenda, but we have coffee hours all the time. We'll be back again to talk about schools, and we always try to answer our emails promptly. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great to see a lot of you guys here today. Fantastic showing last night, and I think we might do that again in a couple of weeks. So, being on the Education Committee, let me just tell you what we've been up to and the timeline. Because of affordability issues, because of, just that, what feels like an out-of-control spending for our public education, the governor has rolled out an enormous 200-page bill, hoping to rectify so much of this. And I know a lot of you were here last night, so I'm just going to hit the highlights. Under his plan, we would go from 119 school districts down to 5. There would be set teacher-student ratios of 1 to 25 for high school and middle school, for pre-K through 4th, maybe 1 to 15. Education would then be funded by what he calls a foundation formula. So a school would receive money, or a district would receive money for how many students they have. The base amount that they're talking about right now in the foundation formula, the base amount is $13,200 per student. You would add to that extra money for very rural kids. You would add money for English language learners, those in poverty, things like that. And I want to say that they're estimating that the foundation fund would probably be around $20,000 per kid. They would also, under his plan, establish in each district, they could name any school to be a school choice school that any kid could go to. In fact, in the bill it says a district could have as many school choice schools as they wanted to. I know, I have a lot of questions too. I can see you have questions. And a lot of these questions are not answered in the bill. Of course, this could also create magnet schools, I suppose. Some people think that's good. Maybe you have an art school over here, you have a STEM school over there, and kids can choose. But of course, let's say one becomes very popular, as it says in the bill, then you would have a lottery system for kids to get in. And for as much as it says equity, and as much as they've said equity, we know that also is a problem. It's not clear where all the kids will go. I mean, it does say that the kids who attended your school in 26 or 27, 28 will go there the next year, that sort of thing, but there's no guarantees after that. Senator Baumgart's, your senator, is also rolling out his own plan, his own bill, and I believe he's got 9 districts, and some things are a little bit different, and by the next 2 weeks when I'm here, I should have more details on that. But anyway, again, so great to see so many of you that were here last night. Hope to see you again. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. It is an education transformation. So, just timeline. Typically, I think bills are supposed to go to crossover by March 14th. Financial bills 21st. We have been given an extension on this because we literally just got this week till the end of March. So, there you have it. Thank you. Thank you.
So before we begin with the warrant order of business, I've been asked by the select board to present 3 resolutions memorializing Albert DeGrow, Raymond Smith, and Gerald Woodard. So whereas Albert DeGrow, a resident of Arlington, died on November 30th, 2024, after serving his community for many years. Whereas Albert was also dedicated to serving the town as land use administrator and as health officer for many years. Now therefore be it resolved that the community of Arlington take public notice of its loss in the passing of this valuable and esteemed citizen. And be it further resolved that this expression of sympathy be extended to the family of Albert DeGrow, and that this resolution be made a permanent part of the record of this meeting on this date of March 3rd, 2025. Second resolution. Whereas Raymond Smith, a resident of Arlington, died on April 5th, 2024, after serving his community for many years. Whereas Raymond was also dedicated to serving the town on the Zoning Board of Adjustment and the Planning Commission for many years. Now therefore be it resolved that the community of Arlington take public note of its loss on the passing of this valuable and esteemed citizen, and be it further resolved that this expression of sympathy be extended to the family of Raymond Smith, and that this resolution be made a permanent part of the record of this meeting on this date of March 3rd, 2025. And finally, whereas Gerald Woodard, a resident of Arlington, died on September 3rd, 2024, after serving his community for many years. Whereas Gerald was also dedicated to serving the town as a select board member, as a justice of the peace, and as a defense viewer for many years. Now therefore be it resolved that the community of Arlington take public note of its loss in the passing of this valuable and esteemed citizen. And be it further resolved that this expression of sympathy be extended to the family of Gerald Woodard, and that this resolution be made a permanent part of the record of this meeting on this date of March 3rd, 2025. Is there a motion to adopt these resolutions? Yes. Second. All those town annual report. And I'll begin by entertaining a motion to dispense with the reading of the 2024 annual town meeting minutes and ballot results. Those will be printed on page 73 of your annual report. So, a second. During the discussion, if there's no discussion, all those in favor of dispensing with the reading of the 2024 annual meeting town minutes and ballot results, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, I will entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the warning for the 2025 annual town meeting, as printed on page 5 of your annual report. Is there a motion? And a second. All those in favor of the motion to waive the reading of the 2025 annual town meeting warning, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So moving on to Article 1. To hear the reports of the town officers. These reports are printed on pages 11 through 18 and 36 to 72 of the town report. Is there a motion to accept the report of the town officers as presented in the annual report? And a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Article 1 carries. The next order of business is Article 2, to see if the town will vote a budget to meet the expenses and liabilities of the town. So the proposed budget is found beginning on page 18 of the town report, and a summary of the budget can be found on page 31 of the town report. And there is a typo that we need to correct. This shows that the budget as proposed by the select board is $2,052,184. From that number, we have to subtract what we're going to vote on tomorrow in terms of appropriations for reserve funding and appropriations for community organizations. And there's also non-tax revenue that will not impact the tax rate. And so what we're voting from the floor is the total budget minus the non-tax revenues minus ballot appropriations. And there's a line item, the third one down after the chart, that says the amount to be raised by taxes to be voted from the floor. And then this is $1,346,130 or so. There's a math error there. That was carried forward, I guess, from last year's. When you subtract the non-tax revenues and total appropriations, we get $1,408,541. So that's just a correction. But the summary at the bottom is that the total floor budget, excluding the on-ballot appropriations of $1,700,930, that's the actual number that we're voting on tonight. So is there a motion to adopt the budget as proposed by the select board? And a second. So is there any discussion on the budget at this point? So if there's no discussion, you got a question?
Highway budget. The highway budget, I saw, Joe Jervis, in the highway budget, I saw where there was a project scheduled for Warnbrook Road. Is this a repaving of Warnbrook? And in addition, what is our overall schedule for paving of Class 2 roads in town?
process of doing a full top-to-bottom rescheduling of all the roads in a sequence that makes sense and affordability. But we're not complete on that yet. Mark Robinson, our road foreman, one of the first things he's doing this spring is getting that together. And like I said, it is in process.
That will also include all culverts down through that road that will be replaced and brought up to state standard. There's a lot of them that are not currently. The south end of Warrenbrook.
South of 313 Warrenbrook Road.
Any further discussion on the budget as proposed by the select board? Yes.
There are a couple of line items, 21005 line items having to deal with health insurance.
Could you please provide your name for the record? And it's helpful if you direct us to a page that you're looking at. It's helpful if you direct us to the page you're looking at.
Okay, page 19, line item 11,710, 210.04. Health insurance is going up 1,100%. And then page 22, again, line item 210.0. That health insurance expenditure is going up 97% from last year. If you could just tell us about that.
I'm sorry, your name for the minutes?
Michael Briggs.
I didn't catch the one.
Could you repeat the line items, please?
Page 19.
Page 19.
Yep. 11,710, 210.05.
11,710, 210.05. Administrator health insurance, please. And the second one was on page 22.
12,710, 210. Again, health insurance.
Yeah, 12,710, 210 health insurance for the highways.
Yes, those are one of the issues that the board has grappled with this budget season is the unsustainability of health insurance. Over the last couple of years, we had double-digit increases in both years, 14-15%. And up until now, that's we've been able to absorb that with our budgets, but that's becoming more and more unsustainable. So we have a plan for dealing with that, and that is right now the town has 100% of the premium of the workers, the road crews and so forth. So we're going to phase in a plan where they become participants up to 80%, but it's going to be phased in over time. So we're not sure yet. We're in the very preliminary discussions of that, but we recognize, the board has recognized that we are not able to sustain 100% Cadillac policy for the workers. Up until recently, that has not been the case, but recently, for whatever reason, Vermont seems to be the most expensive state in the country to get health insurance. And I'm not sure exactly why that is, but we're working on that.
And for those lines specifically, one is employees getting on the insurance that wasn't before, and a new hire which actually has a family plan. So that's why those came up.
So the composition of the employees has changed, driving it up as well. But the underlying problem is just the seemingly out of control escalation of the rates year over year.
Any further discussion on the budget as proposed by the select board?
18, I have a question about delinquent property taxes. Item 11601. And the interest and the penalty. What is the town doing to collect those delinquent taxes?
We have a delinquent tax collector who's responsible for collecting the delinquent taxes. That is an elected office, and you'll have a chance to vote on that tomorrow, I believe. So once someone is delinquent, they're no longer paying their treasurer, they have to work with the delinquent tax collector. Ultimately, if someone does not pay those taxes after a long period of time, the property would go to tax sale. So the ultimate penalty, if you will, is that if you don't pay your property taxes over a period of years, it goes to tax sale. And that's a real thing, it does happen. But we do everything we can, the delinquent tax collector does everything they can to set up payment arrangements to try to make sure people can pay their taxes. But it's a big chunk of money that's out there, and every time someone does not pay their property taxes for whatever reason, that means the burden of running the town falls on property taxpayers who do pay their taxes. So we don't take that lightly at all, and you shouldn't either, and that's why the delinquent tax collector is an important position. And you elect them, and you'll elect them tomorrow.
Yes, follow, okay?
On page 38, which is the delinquent tax collector's report, I see that in the table at the bottom of the page, the tax breakdown of taxes owed increased from 4,906 in 2020 to 181,808 in 2024. What's going on with that?
I can explain that, but it's not what you think it is on the table. The number going backwards is whatever the amount that's delinquent in a given year is closer to the 2024 amount than the previous years. All that that table is showing you is that from previous years, collections have been made. So the amount that shows in 2020, for example, is the last remnants of that much larger number. I don't know if you want to, Kendall, do you want to address that? She's our delinquent tax collector.
So, it shows that you collected the taxes?
The bulk of those previous years have been collected, and they were much higher when, see, this one's showing, yeah, the 24 outstanding are just delinquent. The ones from previous years, the vast majority have been collected.
It's been about 200,000 every year.
Yeah.
And so over time, they get collected.
Okay, so that's what's left out of those years.
Correct.
Yes,
Yeah, absolutely correct.
And in 2024, you have 181,000?
Because it's the most recent delinquencies
You
that
expect
haven't been collected.
to collect those taxes?
Yeah.
Okay.
And those numbers, Kendall, correct me if I'm wrong, those numbers are as of the end of the year? The numbers are as of the end of the year?
Yes, they're at the...
So the totals for each year are what was left from, as of 2024, what was left on all the previous years?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So the bulk of it is collected.
Yeah.
Most of the collected, there was $147,000 that was collected in those taxes from last year.
Okay.
Yes.
John Tozier, a recommendation on this table, I think would be helpful at last year's numbers here and show how much, and we wouldn't have all this discrepancy here. So just for next year,
Yes, Tim.
Yeah, I prefer not to use that. I'd like to go back to the delinquent tax issue. Okay, I have a list right here of delinquent taxes dated February 19th. Okay? And it's clear to me that there's at least 6 properties, okay, that are long, that qualify for tax sale, and it's long overdue.
So out of those 6 properties, I have 4 in a payment arrangement.
Say that again.
Out of those 6 properties, I have 4 residents who have a payment agreement on file.
Okay, and you know, I think that's good. But letters and ordinances that they're not enforced don't work. All right?
The ones that are not enforced, I have sent to
For
them.
instance, here's one property here. Delinquent 21, 22, 23, and 24.
What's the name?
The amount of $18,000 in change. Okay, why does that exist? Tax sales work. There was one, not long ago, in the 11th hour, the full payment came in.
So if you refer back to the past 2 Bennington banner notices on Saturdays, this house is also set for flat tax.
Okay, I'm just saying that,
I'm new to the tax department as of this past year, so I have, I sent a few houses to collection. This one is definitely one of them. You have to wait for, you have to post it places for a certain amount of time, as you're aware. The other tax sale that was supposed to happen was on February 5th, and the taxes were paid February 4th.
okay, so you're comfortable with what's happening since you came on board?
Yes, I'm comfortable.
Without tax
Still
sales?
waiting to return my phone calls and answer my questions that I have to
You know, to schedule tax sales is a difficult decision. It's on the books, it's a tool, and all I'm saying is, I don't think it's fair for the folks that pay their taxes on time, of paying the bill of town bills on the backs of those people that are coming.
I agree 100%. Like I said, I have most of the people that have hired out on a payment agreement. If they don't abide by the payment agreement plans, then I do plan on sending it for tax sale.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the budget as proposed by the select board? Yes.
Maybe it could help me. You reference page 31, total appropriations of $351,254.
What was
And I was just having trouble finding where that's listed in here. And for example, on page 22, it says total appropriations for the budget are $109,754. Can you reconcile those two numbers?
Yes. Those also include the votes on funding the sinking funds. And those numbers are scattered throughout the budget. For example, on page 21, there's reserve funding. It's 11,790 reserve funding. That's the sinking fund for the town,
3,000.
the town building.
So that's considered an appropriation.
That's voted on tomorrow and considered an appropriation, yes. As are the sinking funds for the town trucks and the fire department, and so forth.
A good way to look at those is there's outside appropriations and there's internal appropriations. And all of the trucks and equipment and fire trucks, and all of those are part of the appropriations for capital reserve funding. And they're both in the total in this number. In internal and external. Okay?
So they're spread out.
They are.
Thanks, Rick. On page 15, toward the top here, there's Arlington, I believe are federal funds, and there's a balance of $467,000. What are you planning on doing with that?
The ARPA funds? Yes. They've all been obligated, but they haven't yet been spent. So that as of the year end, that's what that number was.
They've been allocated. in this
They've
current
been
year's
earmarked
budget.
for various things, but some were fire department, some were water, various different departments. But they, as of December 31, this is the snapshot of that, that's where those funds sat, and they may already been allocated, but not yet spent.
So they've been allocated to items in the
Various
previous
projects.
budget?
Yep.
Is that what was it?
Yes.
A good example is fire department got all new helmets, and that was, we literally just paid the bill for that the last select board meeting. So there's a time period, supply chain and
Have we
everything.
spent it all then?
We've allocated almost all of it.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Celine Scruggs. Just last minute to the ARPA funds on page 45 under the water department budget. It's actual minus $40,000. Then on the following page, on page 47, 69,000 in the FY25. Budget.
Are you talking about the wastewater study? The wastewater study is ongoing. Wastewater study is ongoing. We're 2/3 of the way through it, I want to say. And that's where those funds go. The others, I gotta look.
I saw zero in the big budget for wastewater.
Say that again?
I thought I saw zero in the big budget.
It's in the waste, it's for the wastewater department, which is outside of this budget. We have to account for it, but it's the use of the water system, support the water system. So it's not really off budget, it's on the water budget, but it's not on the town budget.
So the 69,000 is the ARPA funds from the town for the.
We allocated money from ARPA to the wastewater study, and we ran it through the water department. But remember, the water department budget is funded by the ratepayers. It is not on the property taxpayers. It is not part of the budget you're voting on tonight. We put it in the report because you deserve to see what's going on with it. But we just used the ARPA funds for the wastewater study, wastewater as opposed to drinking water, and we ran it through the water department because that made the most sense with the ARPA fund. But that is not part of the budget you're voting on tonight because that's the water department is funded by the ratepayers. And that budget is presented to you for information.
Okay, thank you.
On page 31, one of the most remarkable financial reporting statements I've seen is in the budget summary where you have the highway department. The 2024 budget was $697,377, and the actual spend was the same amount. I find that to be remarkable.
So
Yeah, well, is it a specific article that you, is it a specific article to be voted on tomorrow that you have a question about? No. Then I think it'd be fine to speak about it now.
Can I state it?
Yes.
I have a statement that was given to me by Nick. It's not in the annual report. And it's the bank balance of the town of Arlington. At the end of the year, the town had $2,402,493. $2,402,493 in his checking account at the Bank of Bennington. Within that account are all of the capital reserve funds totaling $2,092,943. I'm not sure it's a good idea, number one, to be merging our capital reserve funds within our operating account. And secondly, speaking now as a CPA, it's not a good idea to have so much of the town's funds invested in one bank that where our insurance coverage under the FDIC is only $250,000. All due respect to the Bank of Arlington.
I'm not sure they're all in one account, but I'll check on that and get back to you.
I'm on statement there.
Okay. But not certain that I understand your question, but I think if you total what we have in reserves, and it's 1.9 million, I can't tell you, it's on one of the slides, it's not exact. But we have that in the capital reserve fund, 1.9 million, which is just shy of what our annual budget. But the difference may be, Nick can correct me if I'm wrong, the difference may be the cash on hand left over at the end of the year. And that was 354, but I don't know those two numbers total.
My only question. And the point is, the taxpayers voted for these funds to be segregated, to be used in the future for capital expenses that will come in line down the road. And at one time we did have them in separate accounts. For some reason, I don't know when it was, they were merged and they're now being shown in the one operating account for the town.
Well, I agree that should be, it should be capital reserve separate. And when we did merge them, I want to say that every single fund had its own account. And that was very unmanageable. So we went to a... Yes.
Auditors do not like that. It's fund account.
Okay, go ahead. I was just informed that the auditors didn't like that its fund accounting was what they were trying to move us to. But I'll have to investigate that further.
What was it? I'm sorry, I can't.
The auditor, the auditors recommended fund accounting, and something to do with fund accounting is what is the answer to the question. But I need to investigate further and get back to you.
I'm pointing out to the board that...
I agree with you on the not having it all in one place. Doesn't make sense. Don't have your eggs on all your eggs in one basket. That does not make sense. But we'll have to look into it and get back to you.
Well, it's just being prudent not to have over $2 million, almost $3 million, $2.5 million invested in one bank that's only insured for $250,000.
Point taken.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the budget as proposed by the select board? If there's no further discussion, then all those in favor of adopting the budget as proposed by the select board, exclusive of the items to be voted tomorrow, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The article carries. The next item, Article 3, to see if the voters will authorize the select board to apply any surplus funds from the previous fiscal year to reduce taxes in the current fiscal year, unless otherwise approved by ballot items. So, yeah, this is allowing the select board to carry the balance that was at the end of the year and apply it to the next year and reduce the amount of the tax rate accordingly. I believe there's an example of this on page 16 with the, how it was applied last year for the tax rate. So is there a motion to authorize? A second? Second. Any discussion on this article? There's no discussion. All those in favor? Please signify by saying aye. Those opposed? There are carries. Article 4. To see if the town will vote to have all taxes paid to the town treasurer as provided by law, tax bills to be issued by September 4th, 2025, and payment to be in the hands of the treasurer or postmark on or before November 5th, 2025. Is there a motion to adopt that article? Yes. Second. All those in favor of adopting Article 4, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The article carries. Moving on to Article 5. To see if the town of Arlington, shall the town of Arlington adopt all budget articles by Australian ballot pursuant to 17 VSA Section 2680C.
John, I'd like to just say a few words about the article before we discuss.
But we need a motion, and then we can have a discussion.
Okay.
Is there a motion? And a second? And then we'll have some discussion. Here we go.
So I just want to frame the discussion. This is a topic that came up at last year's town meeting. Some of you may remember it. Because the way we do things is we vote on all the appropriations to the truck reserve fund and all the outside appropriations tomorrow, and the elected officials tomorrow by Australian ballot. But tonight we do the other part of the budget. So the topic that came up last year was that means that people who can't get to this meeting don't get to vote on the majority of the town's spending. And if we had the budget voted by Australian ballot tomorrow as well, more people would be able to vote on it, because way more people vote tomorrow than are here in this room. So we thought that was an interesting topic. And so we had a discussion with people in the community that supported this idea, and we decided to put it on the ballot. I don't believe the select board has taken any kind of official position on this. We really think this is a community issue. I think it's really clear that more people would have a chance to vote on the budget if it was by Australian ballot tomorrow rather than here today, tonight. You just voted on the budget here. The issue is that when we have, there's a couple of issues. So there's enhanced franchise, more people being able to vote on it and more accountability. That's always a good thing. The one thing to think about is that if you vote on the budget by Australian ballot, the budget is set. There's no changing it. If you vote on it at town meeting, there's the chance that something might change. We have had years where something got left out of the budget, and we were able to put it back in at town meeting. We have had times when voters felt the select board had not done things exactly right, and they wanted us to increase something or decrease something, and you, the voters, were able to make that change in the budget at town meeting on the floor tonight. So if we go to Australian budget, that possibility will be gone. So let's suppose we were having a terrible winter. Oh, actually, we are having a terrible winter, but and we needed more sand or salt in the budget because what's in the budget is not enough. We've already gone through it. That's not the case. We're fine, but it is a terrible winter. But anyway, suppose we needed to change the budget. We couldn't do it. It would be by Australian ballot tomorrow. We'd have to have a special town meeting to add more spending. So you're going to lose some flexibility, but you're going to gain enhanced voter participation, enhanced accountability. I personally am not sure what I think. And I'm going to have to make up my mind soon, because guess what? We here are going to vote on this article, because those of us at town meetings are the ones that will be giving up the right to vote on the budget here and allocating to Australian ballot budget. So this article is not going to be voted on tomorrow. It's going to be voted on here tonight. So I just really want to highlight that for you, and I know there are people who want to speak on this topic. Again, I think it's really got some very strong arguments in favor, but I'm also a little worried about the flexibility issue. So I'm going to decide in the next 5 or 10 minutes how I'm going to vote. So I hope that frames things for you. And you know, again, we've taken this very seriously. I think there are varying opinions on the board. We haven't taken a final position because we really want you guys to be making the decision.
Several questions.
Yes.
Hi, Cindy, I just have a question. So you're saying that we vote on it tomorrow, it goes forward, but we still have a town meeting, we still can discuss the budget. Had there be a change in the budget, you said we could have a special town meeting because it's going to be set if we vote on it, Australian ballot, right?
That is my understanding.
But we still have the authority, if you will, as the town to discuss the budget.
Absolutely.
And we can make that referral for something to be added or changed, and we just have to have a different.
Absolutely, absolutely. It would just be a different process. And I also believe that if we decided we didn't like doing it that way, we could put it back. So I think there's some flexibility here. I just want people to understand what we're getting and what we might be giving up. And I think that it's possible that what we're getting is worth more than what we're giving up, but we have to be aware that we will lose that little bit of flexibility. But we still will gather for town meeting. We'll still be voting on other things that are very important. It's just the vote on the budget on the floor would not happen. It would happen tomorrow. Oh, in the future, the vote would be tomorrow. Now it's tonight. You're voting on Article 5 tonight as to whether to change to vote by Australian ballot in the future, next year. So we already voted the budget, right? So if you decide you want to vote by Australian ballot, that will start next year. Is that?
We really don't lose anything, because if we're doing an Australian ballot, and like you just said, we can still discuss it here at the town meeting, and the only thing we lose is just the people that show up tonight to pass the budget.
That's right.
And the rest of the town was able to come and make that choice.
That's right. And we do lose this question of being able to adjust budget items. So we could discuss it, and then we could set another town meeting and make that adjustment. We just couldn't do it in the same way.
The other thing that you should note is when we go to our Australian ballot on the budget, it's not line items that are voted on. It's up or down on the total. But with the exception of the appropriations, will still be voted on the Australian ballot separately. That's my understanding. So portions of it will be selective and portions of it will be all encompassing. So we don't lose everything. So we're already doing the appropriations individually, internal and external. So I think there was a question over here.
So what's the long-term effect on town meeting if you take away the budget? It seems like the first thing we're losing is the ability to meet, have a second town meeting seems kind of preposterous.
Well, we've had special meetings before. So like Cynthia said, you know, we may not know what we lose, but we have the ability to recover it if we need to. So, I mean, it's honestly, my personal thoughts is it's kind of a coin toss, very much like probably the rest of the board, because if we had a crystal ball and could say it's a good idea or a bad idea, we probably would, but we really don't. And so it's a trial at best. But the one thing that I fear is once you go down that road, can you come back? And I'm not sure that that works. And I'll give you an example of that. When we went in our ballot counting, it used to be, and I'm kind of dating myself by the way we count ballots, we had 4 or 5 tables, and 3 or so were individuals counting ballots, and then there was a summary that was given to a head table, and that was the thing we lost when we went to the tabulators. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the tabulators. It's very well done, it's quick, it saves everybody time, but we lost the community of that ballot count night that took sometimes twice, 3 times as long as it does now. But there was a certain camaraderie among the people that counted and the poll workers and so forth that we lost. I don't think we're ever getting that back.
You got
There's one there and then you're next.
Just so I can be a little less confused on this issue. If we vote to have all articles by Australian ballot, does that mean that this meeting is no longer going to happen?
No.
It would still happen.
It will still happen.
You just would not vote the budget here. We could discuss all the articles. We could do everything we do. It's just that you would not be adopting the budget the way you just did a few minutes ago. That would happen by voting tomorrow.
What you would be doing is very similar to what the school does now.
Right.
You have an up or down vote on the school budget, and the meeting that they present, which they're going to do right after us, is informational. So that tomorrow you can decide up or down. That's where we're going with that. So there was...
We'll go there next. Go ahead, please.
Can I just ask a point of clarification? The way that you're talking about doing it would be, would it be, when they go to the polls tomorrow, would on the ballot, would it say the budget as approved by the town meeting, or will it be the budget that's in here?
It would be the budget that we...
budget that's in here.
It would be the budget that's in there.
We'll get to you in just a second. We've got a couple people up here.
Well, my question would be errors. Like now tonight, right at the beginning, putting out an error. So how does it deal with that? You know, we deal with those. I love telling you that it's such a thing, but how do you do it with the errors?
I think typos and things like that would still be corrected by the moderator.
The ballot.
There's an issue that you're raising with the ballot printing. That's certainly something that is possible. So it's not as cut and dry as we might think. That's why we're having this discussion. I think there was one.
Oh, we get the microphone here.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a bit confused. I thought that if we went to the Australian ballot, then in the year that follows, we would lose the flexibility of being able to change the budget if there was need. And it seems to me in this changing political scene we have nationally that there might be need to change our budget after it's been passed.
I'm not sure I heard all of that.
So she was asking about the question of losing the ability to change the budget. Right now, we can change the budget on the floor before we voted on it. We didn't, we just approved the ballot. If we went to the Australian balloting for the budget, which would be next year if you approve this article tonight, we could still change the budget, but we couldn't do it there because the ballot's already set. We would have to have another town meeting and make the adjustment to the meeting at the second town meeting. So in other words, if it turned out there was a big mistake, or there was a sudden urgent need, or we had to cut something or raise something, we would have to have a special town meeting like the next one.
Another vote.
And another vote. Would that help you by Australian ballot or be at the town meeting?
No,
It would be by Australian ballot until the change.
Another meeting, another vote.
It would be another Australian ballot.
And it would be another Australian ballot. So we would have another meeting, an informational meeting, and then another Australian ballot to approve the change in the budget. So we can still change the budget, it just wouldn't be as easy as it is now when we can make changes on the floor. And that's what you're losing. I think that, to my mind, that's the only thing you're losing. It's, for some people, it does sort of change one of the whole points of historically our town meeting, but as they said, the school district has been doing it this way for quite some time. But that is the flexibility you're losing. We can still make changes, just not as easily. But you're gaining the enhanced voting participation. It seems to me I can remember four.
I can remember a handful of times when we've had to do something like that. But special meetings are called regularly all over Vermont. So, yeah. I totally agree with that. The more the merrier when it comes to everybody's opinion.
Hi, what would the town do to notify the community of a special meeting to make sure that everybody would be actively informed about the meeting, be able to show up, so we don't have to listen necessarily at this meeting?
Yeah, every year we authorize official places to recognize and warn meetings. And that would go through those same channels if there was going to be a special meeting. And honestly, it's Arlington. It'd be all over town within hours. So, just so you know, the other nuance to it that probably doesn't make a lot of difference in this scenario, but just because we vote a budget doesn't mean we have to spend it all. If we have an urgent need, we can shift from, and we have a policy on how we do that, where we can shift money from here to here if one line is short. But we cannot exceed the top line budget that you vote. So just because it's in the budget doesn't mean we necessarily have to spend any given line.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to say that if we do move to this Australian ballot, also we're going to have to pay poll workers. I think a larger sample is great, but you're paying the poll workers, you're paying for the ballots to be printed. So you have to correct me if I'm wrong on the actual cost, but you're probably looking at $2,000 to $2,500 per vote paid for by the town. For a special vote.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Susan.
So you're essentially asking the assembly here tonight to vote on this now, to start next week. So you want all of us to vote on the behalf of the rest of the people in town?
Yeah,
Because that's the way
because we vote the budget by in person right now. State law dictates that that's how we have to change this vote.
So we can't make a motion to put it on the ballot?
No, it has to go through this way.
This is the statutory way we have to do it because this is the way we've always done it, and all of you that have participated have done it. And so in order to change that, we have to have your permission. That's why we're doing it on the floor. I raised the same scenario at our last meeting Monday night. I'm like, it seems antithetical to the spirit of the change, that you would only ask 150 people to vote something that then you're having, and that's the conundrum, but it's the conundrum with the statute that causes that, not us.
I personally feel that it should stay the way it is. Sure, we have less people here, probably less than 10% of the town of Arlington. But this is the group of people that are concerned about what's going on in the town. They're listening, and then they'll vote on things. So my feeling is we ought to reject, we ought to defeat this motion and stay the way we are.
Tim's next.
Thank you. I'm relatively new to the town, and
hang out for this before you went to this change in voting. You know, it was very hard for me to even find what, beyond the notice, anything that was on the agenda tonight. I mean, the amount of information that needs to get out to recruit more people. Maybe we need, you know, drivers to bring people who can't drive during the evening. Has any of those things been looked at to expand the number of people here this evening?
What was your name for the minutes, please?
Susan McKay.
Susan McKay.
So we really didn't have an extensive discussion of that. We post the meetings, we post when town meeting is going to be, we mail out the town report to anybody who requests it. We used to mail the town report to everybody, and they just all ended up in the recycling bin. So now you have to ask it. I think that's an interesting idea, whether or not this article passes, because I think the more people we can get to meetings, the better. But I can tell you, in my experience, which is now about 20 years or so of town meetings, it stays about the same, give or take, depending on the weather. So I think that this gentleman is correct, is that there are certain people who care enough and have the time to come and participate in this way, and for a lot of people it's very, very difficult. But that's not to say it wouldn't be a good idea to do that, but we did not explore that. This matter was raised last year, it was discussed, they asked us to put it on the ballot, and we put it on the ballot, and so it's up to you guys to decide. He's taking over, there we go.
If we have to, I'm all in transitioning to Australian ballot, and I'll share with you why. If we have to have an extra vote, I'll volunteer to help at the polls, okay, to keep the cost down. But somebody spoke about the importance of town meeting. This Article 5 has absolutely nothing to do about discouraging town meeting, okay? It has nothing to do with that. Town meeting is democracy at its best. And if you, those of you who attended yesterday, Sunday, okay, public forum on the school issue, it was, I thank Todd and Nicole and the school board, it was well done. Anyway, here's why I feel that this transition is important, okay? And these are not numbers that I pulled out of a hat, all right? Last year, 650 people came into this gym to vote Australian ballot at the polls. I'm going to estimate there was 100 people at town meeting, okay? That means that 550 people in this town were denied the opportunity to vote on this town budget. And to me, that's democracy at its worst. One at a time.
I don't think it's your forum.
No. Yeah, I didn't. What's the response? What? Yes?
They chose.
All right, so what you're saying is 550 people in this town that for one reason or another couldn't come to the town meeting, and it's going to be the same here tonight. You're saying they don't care, and that's nonsense. There's a variety of reasons why people don't give up their evening.
It's called choices.
All right? It's a comment made. If you really care, you come to town meeting, and I don't buy that. There's 650 people that voted last year.
Call the question.
Here's a couple more things as to why I think this is important. Who's to determine that everybody in here? Pardon?
Well, we haven't quite ended the discussion. There are a couple of other people who wanted to weigh in.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah, the acoustics in here.
it's different.
So,
He's He's got a question, and there's one down here, and then we'll call.
So one of the things that have been brought up is that people have time to be here. This is the first time I've ever had time to go to a town meeting. This is the first time I've had time to vote. So if we switch, other people who don't have time, like work, family, other volunteer activities, can vote. So it's not what is important, it's what is time. Because bills are often more important, family is more important. So switching to an Australian ballot allows everybody who doesn't have time to be here on Monday night.
Well, what's your name for the minutes, please? John.
I'm not going to give you just 2 cents. I'm giving you 10 cents worth. Okay? It's called Zoom. Collect everybody's email address, and I guarantee 99.9% of people in this town have an email address. You invite them to a Zoom meeting. I can sit at home and participate in all of this just by raising my hand. And you can take my question and report.
Put it up to your mouth.
I'm talking about Zooming the meeting. You can please inquire, ask everyone for their email address in town. I'm suggesting and assuming that 99.9% of people in this town have an email address. You send out an invitation to Zoom the meeting when we can all participate, no matter where we are. We can sit in the car, we can sit at home. I can just raise my hand on a Zoom meeting, and you can recognize me and say, what's your question? So that is my 10 cents worth.
So I like the idea of Zoom, and I can't be the only person here who is doing it. And it's very difficult for me to follow anybody's conversation. I get bits and pieces of it, and the acoustic is not great. Closed caption on Zoom is wonderful. I can get anything that's being said. I totally support Zoom and closed caption.
All right, two more points, I guess?
Yeah, a couple other things, this might be nitpicking, but who's to say that everybody in this room that is voting on the town budget is registered? What if we have a small turnout, okay? 15% of the people in town are gonna determine the town budget? And here's another thing that might sound foolish, but I think if you're honest, you think of peer pressure as a teenage thing. Well, guess what? You're all sitting here, we're friends and relatives and enemies, and we're asked to vote, floor vote, yea or nay. Okay? I don't think you're getting necessarily an honest opinion, an honest count. So I just, I'm all in on the changing the ballot.
All right. Get one last comment, then we'll call the question.
Thank you, Tim.
I think if you look at the demographics, you'll see that the vast majority of the people that were here last night are not here tonight because they have school children. This is probably the second outing I've been to since I've had kids. A Sunday night's easier, a Sunday evening at 4 o'clock or afternoon at 4 o'clock. It was filled with, without school children, it was about the schools, but still, I think on Monday night, the first week back, day to work, the first day back to school, if you have kids and it's at 6, 7 o'clock, you're putting those kids down. You're getting them ready for bed, you're getting them ready for school the next day. So I think those people would be glad to be here tonight, and for a lot of reasons, they simply can't be, but they will be here tomorrow. So I'm in favor of switching.
Motion, Mr. Moderator, call the question.
Yes, they're going to call the question. Motion's been made. Pardon me?
Make a motion as to how, rather than voice vote,
Yes. Typically, the question is, can we do a head count rather than a yay or a nay? And the typical procedure is if there's any controversy, we can't really tell and then we can, so we can't tell on a vocal vote, we can do, a standing vote, or we can do a kind of a secret ballot vote, if there's still that concern.
I make a motion that this is standing.
Okay, so Tim is making a motion that we have a standing count for this article. We need to have a second.
Correct.
Correct.
They want to do something different. They need to make a motion to amend.
I think that's what Tim was trying to do. Making a motion to amend that we have a standing vote rather than a vocal vote. But that would need to be seconded, and that would need to be voted on before we can move on. We have a second for a standing vote. Is there any discussion on the ability to have a standing vote versus a vocal vote? And all those in favor of conducting a standing vote for Article 5, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? I believe those ayes have it, and we'll have a standing vote. All right. So, the article on the floor for a standing vote is to see if the town of Arlington shall the town of Arlington adopt all budget articles by Australian ballot pursuant to 17 ESA 2680C. All those in favor, please stand.
You're about 50.
You guys voting? If you're for it, you need to stand. And so it's close. We have 48. 48 yes, 54 no. Wow. So that would mean that the article is not carried. Pardon? We would have a paper vote. Yes. So the final order of business this evening is set forth in Article 6 to transact any further business found necessary and proper to met any further business under Article 6. After any further business under Article 6, the said meeting shall recess until Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. So, any other business to be brought before the board? Yes. So the question is, why doesn't the town administrator have a separate report in the annual town report?
Dan said last year that he would correct that, because I mean, he's making a fair amount of money. Have some.
The town administrator has a report at every meeting we have. There's a report from the town administrator, and we do our report based on the total year of everything, but he does one every 2 weeks, or at every regular meeting.
I think that he is doing a report every 2 weeks to the select board, and that report is public. We determined that the select board had our report, and that really covers most of what he's been working on. If it would be a good idea that he have his own report in the town report, we could explore that. It would be very repetitive because what we discuss in the select board report are the things he's been working on. But we could explore that and see if there would be value added. But he gives the select board a report on his activities every time we have a select board meeting. And those reports, I believe, are posted on the website, and they're publicly available. But I think we could address that issue and discuss that and see if that would be a good idea to have something in the report. But since he works for the select board and he's not an independent actor, we thought the select board report was sufficient. If it's not, we can ask him to do his own report.
That was last year. Dan said that last year that they would correct that.
I don't recall that may have been true. I recall the idea of having making sure his bi-weekly reports are posted, and I know we've done that. But I don't think we understood that somebody meant to put a report in this book. I'm really sorry if we misunderstood. I don't, did the town administrator do a separate report?
Yes.
I mean, we've never...
First 2 years he was in there, he had a report.
A separate town report? Okay. All right, we'll check into that.
Okay, another question, I'd like to know what's going on with Benedict Crossing.
Benedict Crossing. Oh, your favorite. Okay, so the Benedict Crossing Bridge has been closed for quite some years, and we were directed by the state to have an engineering study of all the alternatives, and we did that because having that study would get us partway to a solution and state funding. The engineering firm looked at a variety of options: repairing the existing bridge, rebuilding a similar bridge, replacing it with a one-lane bridge. I think they also did replacing it with a two-lane bridge. And they asked the select board for guidance. We asked them to further develop the option of replacing the bridge with a one-lane steel and concrete bridge on the existing abutments, rather than trying to rebuild what's there. However, all of these options are very, very expensive. And the one that we chose and asked them to develop, we haven't committed to anything, we've just asked them for engineering plans, is over $1 million. And we don't have that money. We've been saving up for this project, but we only have like $200,000, $300,000. So we are asking for further engineering documents for this project, but we do not know when we would be able to undertake it, because we are really reluctant to borrow money. The town does not borrow money lightly for one bridge that serves that particular area. Most of us who have property or live in that area really want that bridge back, and we may eventually get there, but we're going to have to save up the money because it's really expensive. The other problem is the plan would put the new bridge on the existing abutment. The existing abutments would have to be repaired, and until you start getting into it, you don't actually know how much repairing they're going to need. So there's some questions there. So we have the engineering studies, we know what our options are, we've chosen the one that we think is probably the best. And one of the reasons for choosing that, even though it's so expensive, is that we don't want to have to come back to it. I like the idea of repairing the existing bridge or rebuilding a similar bridge, but that bridge is not going to last very long. If we put in this new bridge, it might last 50, 75 years, so that we'd really get our money's worth. So the situation is, we have the options, we've chosen one option to develop, but we don't know when we might be able to fund that.
Because it said, last year report said we're waiting on the engineering report, and this year you said, oh, you just got it in December, did it take that long, the engineering?
It did, it did. It took unbelievably long, and most of it had to do with how busy all the different engineers in Vermont are, and they had subcontracted engineers doing things. It was very, very distressing that it took so long, but we couldn't do anything about it. We couldn't suddenly switch firms. We had to wait until they completed it, and I personally stopped voting to pay their invoices until they produced the report, and they did produce it, but it took really, I think, a year more than it was supposed to take, and there was nothing we could do.
If that's, I mean, it's up to you. I'm not supposed to present it, but
I agree.
it's up to you. I'm just trying to read the room, and I think that would be the appropriate. Yeah.
That's right, that's why we have I agree, and sections of the road are getting more traffic than they were designed for. Unfortunately, 1.2 or $1.4 million is a lot of money, and right now we don't have it. And it's on us. We might get some state money. We don't know how much state money we'll get. So we've asked for the final documents. So we're going to get the final engineering plans, and we will evaluate the situation. But as I said, to bond for that bridge would be, that would be hard for Arlington to do. It really, what is it, the ratio, the debt to income ratio, it would really put us in it. We have to be very careful about doing that. So I personally intend to replace this bridge, but we can't do it. We don't have $1.4 million. We want to wait and see the final engineering plans, and then we will explore all possible sources of funding, whether it's state, federal, or the municipal bond bank, which would be the most likely thing. I think the key thing is to keep saving up the money and then eventually do it. But the select board has not abandoned the bridge. It's just a very difficult situation. It's way more expensive, just like everything these days, than we ever thought it would be. But the truck traffic would not be using that bridge. That bridge has a weight limit. The truck traffic uses the bridges at either end, and so they're going to be going back and forth no matter what. I share your dissatisfaction, and I will keep pushing on it, but it's a very difficult situation.
I would just like to express my feeling, and I'm sure that at the assembly tonight, I thank you to all of you who serve our town, both the elected officials and the unelected officials who are employed by the town. It's been quite a year.
Wait, I think we're going to do Peggy first, and then you're next.
There's somebody up there who had this.
I'd like to make a motion to let our library director of the Martha Campbell Memorial Free Library, Kira Howard, speak to the assembly tonight. She's not a resident of the town.
So we have a motion to the assembly to allow the new librarian to address the assembly. First and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Please go ahead.
Hello, I just wanted to be able to introduce myself, new library director Kira Howard. I took over for Phyllis and she retired after 44 years of dedicated service, and we thank her for that. And we've had a great year, and we thank you all for your support. And we've got a good year planned, so it's going good.
My name is Bill Bryan, and I'm here to represent the Arlington Food Show. And I just want to say thank you to all of you who have supported us throughout the years. We have those, if you haven't seen it, I urge you to drive by 265 East Arlington Road and look at our brand new location. We've been in there since May. We serve 70 families in the area for food insecurities every month. And it's over 200 people that come to the food show to receive assistance. 2 years ago, I believe I stood in front of you and said, I made a bold statement that we had ended hunger. And I still believe that we have, but we have not ended food insecurity. And no matter what your political affiliation is, you know it's hurting in the pocketbook when you go to the grocery store. We do have economic guidelines that are set by the federal government. A family of 4 is eligible for our services if they earn under $94,000 a year. That's me. I don't use the services, but that's the type of people that we want to serve. It would not be possible without you folks, residents of Arlington, Champaign, and Sunderland. We have not spent taxpayer money to do what we did. It's all through private contributions and grants that we've applied for. I'm not here asking for money, but if you're hungry, there's food out there that's being sold by the kids from the high school that are in the Lions group, and the proceeds from that goes to the food shelf. So please, if you're so inclined, and if you're hungry, stop by. And again, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I just want to comment, thank you so much for everything you do. And the thing that I love as someone who used to be a customer of Chittenden Bank is it's still a bank. It's just a food bank instead of a money bank. So I love that. I also just wanted to I have to make a comment about when we voted to allow the librarian to speak, which she did very well, is that we've been talking about town meeting and all the traditions of town meeting, how important it is. This question of you're not able to speak unless you're a town resident is really, really serious. And I have heard stories that in Rupert once, the sitting governor went to the town meeting and asked to speak, and they were not a resident of Rupert. And the moderator said, are there any objections? And somebody objected, and the governor was not allowed to speak. So that's Vermont.
Yes.
My name is John Kohler on behalf of Arlington Rescue Squad. We want to say thank you for all your support. We try really hard to service our community. We think you do a good job. If you're interested in volunteering, we'd love to have you. If you know anyone who wants to be an EMS professional, we are looking to hire. So give us a call, let us know. Again, thank you very much.
Good evening. Sorry about the free entertainment. One of the working dads. Just speaking on behalf of the Arlington Village Farmers Market, we have our new market manager, Peggy Hansen, who introduced the library director. We're going to be hosting the market on Main Street, across from the town hall, so we want to thank all the area partnerships that have been possible because of that, and appreciate your continued support as we enter in our 6th or 7th year. Thank you.
I'm a volunteer at Habitat, a resident of Arlington, and volunteered for 24 years at Habitat. We have built about 40 homes in Bennington County, 2 of which are right here in East Arlington. The assessed valuation of all of these 2 homes is $307,000. That produces taxes at current rates of somewhere close to $5,000. Habitat is asking in the resolutions for $779 in support from the town of Arlington. To me, that's a pretty good deal. A couple other points. More volunteers are always wanted and needed. And our restore in Manchester benefits Habitat, all the sales in there. So please approve our request.
I just want to give a shout out to Bennington Project Independence, who also has an appropriation on the ballot. As a family and a resident, I cannot express enough the amazing work that they do. And I do know that they're always looking for residents. For families that have old person that they have to take care of or watch and need to be able to send them there and have them have an amazing experience all day long with staff that I can't tell you how much care and love they give to everybody that's in that place. We just have personal experience, just really urgent to look at them positively when we heard about it.
Hi there, my name is Kate Ryan, and tonight I'm asking you to vote yes to Article 36 in support of GNAT Television. Here in Arlington, they, in 2024, they provided services for 38 of our government meetings. And what that did was it allowed folks who weren't able to attend those meetings to participate by knowing what's happening in their town. And so that's roughly $52 a meeting. You know that it costs way more than that to do that work. So I do hope that you will vote yes to Article 36 tomorrow. Thank you.
I just want to say I'm speaking on behalf of the Arlington Common, and I just want to say thank you to the community for all of your support this year, for attending our events, coming to our coffees, coming to our talks, and we've taken part of the health center, so thank you.
safety health needs for about $4,200, which you'll see on the appropriations of $4,000 is what we typically ask for. As part of that last motion at the meeting that we all approved, we also just created a new line item for that, anticipating that as we see, you know, nationwide, school budgets, and especially in Vermont, are ever growing because of healthcare costs, and the needs aren't changing for our kids to get good education. So I just wanted to point that out to you all. The Arlington Nursing Group has been around since 1946, approaching 80 years of service to the community. Initially, Lynn Williams was the school nurse and it funded her salary, well baby checks, and people in here who got their vaccines and checkups when they were children, and they're now on our board. So anyway, super important service. Obviously, our mission has changed a little bit over the years with health care insurance, what have you. But we still provide a much needed service to the community and appreciate your support.
So I'm John Murray, probably the guy you see walking his husky all over town and whatnot. I just wanted to thank Whitley for taking care of the park and making it a great place to go to. It's a real hidden gem, or not really so hidden because it's in the middle of town. But it's pretty great, and thank you.
So is there any further business to be brought before the assembly? If not, then I would entertain a motion to recess until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning for polling here at the Memorial High School Gymnasium. A second? Second. Any opposed?